Well, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Canadian Football Fanatics. We have done it, ladies and gentlemen. Labor Day long weekend. Canada West football is in the air. I guess I shouldn't say we've made it because I think I'd probably be other minority of having a 4-day weekend. I'm sure a few people will be attending work tomorrow, but my weekend starts now with heading down to Touchdown Pacific. And that means Canada West football kicks off this weekend. So, as you guys can see, Canada West football preview for 2024 season. Um, as you guys have, are aware that have been subscribed, following to the channel, we uploaded our Regina Rams preview this morning. Was hoping to get 6 of those episodes out. Unfortunately, due to schedules and some programs just um, I wouldn't say denying because that's not the right word, but just passing on the opportunity to do a preview, wanting to focus in-house, which is totally understandable, and I respect that. I understand probably a little bit bad timing on my part with these programs being in training camp, that sort of thing. So totally understandable, but we're gonna still get a league-wide or conference-wide, excuse me, preview for you guys. I'm gonna have Connor O'Neill from Canadian Football Perspectives join us here in a matter of moments to preview the conference as well as the Regina Rams preview that dropped this morning. We will be releasing as well our University of Manitoba preview tomorrow morning, the day of the games, the 3 games that kick off the week 1, the 2024 season in the Canada West, which is UBC hosting University of Alberta, which I'm really excited for. Regina traveling to the University of Calgary, another good matchup, and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, I believe, is the last matchup on Friday evening tomorrow. In Canada West, I know there was a little bit of exhibition matches last week, but all 6 programs will be in action this week, and it will count. So looking forward to that. Not too sure how much I'm going to be able to pay attention live, like I was mentioning earlier. Going to be at Touchdown Pacific down in Victoria, starting my weekend a little bit earlier. Took the day off for Friday tomorrow. Planning on heading down to Victoria pretty early. Going to take in all the festivities for Touchdown Pacific, and then if I do have some time later in the evening, I will definitely take my time and enjoy some Canada West football. If not, having the seasons pass from Canada West TV, I believe, folks, it's only about $40 for the season, unless you want to pay. I believe it's $8.99 per game, or you can pay a one-time fee of $40. I believe you get the seasons pass and you can watch all games on demand. So really cool feature. Although I know I've said it a few times on this show or on this platform, I guess. I would love to see them make it free like OUA TV, but that's nor here nor there because still a pretty reasonable price, and can't complain too much. So before Connor joins us, like I said, Regina preview, University of Manitoba preview coming out tomorrow. So we won't spend too much time talking about those 2 teams, but the other 4 programs would love to have Connor's opinion on them, and kind of get his insights, seeing as that he's the expert in this field, or if that's what you want to call it. I know he shies away from maybe that expert title, but those guys have been covering youth sports for much longer than me, so love to get their thoughts and opinions and being able to share with you guys. So looking forward to that. If you guys are tuning in on Instagram, please make sure you guys are followed on the Instagram account, and please make sure that you guys be a friend and tell a friend. Not too sure if he's still watching over on Instagram. I see my good friend, our friend of the program, Steen, is watching. University of Calgary product. Steen, buddy, wishing you best of luck this weekend. As you can see, riding with you guys, not just because of you, but I think looking higher hopes, I think, on the Dinos going into this season. So appreciate you, buddy. I always see you actually popping in the Instagram chat. So as always, appreciate you, and best of luck this season. Hope you guys do very well. So to kind of, I guess, give you guys a little preview of the preview. We'll go basically program by program. We'll start east, work our way west. So we'll start with Manitoba Bisons. We'll go with the Regina Rams. We'll talk about those 2 programs with the previews already being out, and then we'll work our way. We'll go Manitoba, Regina, Saskatchewan. We'll go Calgary, U of A, UBC. Looking forward to it. Like I said, I was a little bit bummed that I wasn't able to make it work scheduling wise with a few of the programs. I was looking forward to talking with some of the coaches, but from those who I was able to, super enlightening, and had a good time, honestly, and especially with Josh and Coach Dobie, two very good. Josh being a former Saskatchewan Husky, as well as Brian Domi being the legendary head coach that he is at University of Manitoba. So let's get into it, guys. Um, if you guys weren't aware, if you guys aren't following on the Instagram page, please check out our week one picks that we put together with a panel of Canada West experts, if that's what you guys want to call them or dub them. That being myself, Connor O'Neill of CFP, Gord Randall of Crown Gridiron Countdown, and Matt Young from CTV Saskatoon. I know he works sideline for Canada West TV as well. So got the three of them together as well as myself, doing kind of a similar thing to the BCFC picks that we're doing with Wizard Takes, Peaks, and Mob Squad. So same sort of thing. We're going to be putting out a weekly pick'em post that's out on the three of our Instagram, and then it should be retweeted and stuff like that on the others. Twitter or X, whatever the people are calling it these days, like I just said. So let's get into it. And before we do, if anybody's tuning in on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. When you guys subscribe, please press the notification bell. You guys get notified every time we go live or we upload any sort of content like we did today. Uploading the preview kind of out of somewhere out of nowhere. I know I've teased it a few times here on the show, but was a little bit of a surprise. Didn't really get to tease it as much as we wanted to, as well as an episode like this, which was a little bit last minute planned as well. When I realized I wasn't able to make it work with the other programs, I figured let's maybe pivot a little bit, try to get out a preview for the conference from a conference wide, a bird's eye view, I guess, more so than program by program, as well as an episode like tomorrow that's dropping with University of Manitoba head coach Brian Doby, who was bit. I think I could have got him to record quite a bit longer. How much he enjoys talking, and especially he likes talking ball. Preparing for that episode, I was actually able to listen to the Around the CFL podcast, I believe it's called. So shout out to them and all that they're doing. But he had Brian Doby on, I believe a few weeks ago, and just realized that you know. Um, how much he one loves to talk ball and one quote that stuck out to me about his retirement obviously is that I believe he said I don't want to leave. He said on the program, and he also said it in a little interview clip as well. I don't want to leave, but I want to retire. So I would imagine he's so content, but as well as just I mentioned to him the bittersweet feeling, and I feel for him for sure. So just unfortunate. And yeah, so before we get going here, folks, just gonna put out a few more reminders quickly, so just forgive me here on the fly. Okay, so Connor's going to be joining us here momentarily, everybody, so no panic. Just having a little bit of network issues. Let's start with Regina. I'll give you guys my brief thoughts, and I became familiar with Regina's program and kind of a few integral pieces last year. Actually had University of Regina Ram defensive back Jackson Sombach on the podcast last spring after he tested very well, performed very well at the regional combine. Was able to have Jackson on. That was when I kind of started breaking into the Canada West scene. Also had, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but Matthew Peterson from the University of Alberta. Had him on earlier in the offseason, I believe maybe around March or April. Excuse me, had Jackson on a little bit later. And Jackson, man, was a treat to talk to. Obviously, one of three brothers in the program, born and raised in Regina, a guy that lives and breathes that program. And from another guest I spoke to, obviously with Josh Donnelly, having him on for the preview, both guys just live and breathe that program, and you can see it when they talk and when they speak about the program. So definitely looking at Regina as maybe a team that can improve. Now that being said, I struggle to kind of gauge how much they can improve in a conference like the Canada West, where I think they can get a game or two versus say Manitoba versus Calgary, whoever it may be. It could be U of A, it could be any of the teams. I think the teams are just going to beat each other up so much that I was talking a little bit off camera with some friends, and I think as of now, I think no disrespect, but I think Regina's probably towards, if we are picking, towards the bottom. And then it's kind of everybody else. They're log jammed, 1 through 5, and even I think you can include Regina in there. I think they got to prove themselves probably this year, a few tough seasons, but I think for me the biggest question about Regina, and I'm curious to ask Connor once he joins us, can they pull out some of these close games that they've been on the other end of in the last few years? Um, Specifically last year, I know they lost a few close games, and I think even more there in 2022. Would love if I had the notes from Jackson's episode that I had those written down of how many close games that they were in, and had opportunities to win. Just for whatever reason, the ball didn't bounce their way, and they weren't able to get a victory. So that happens in football, and just interested to see how that program continues to get better. I believe they host the Vanier Cup here next year, and that was something that I also saw around the CFL had head coach of the program Mark McConkey on. He mentioned about the having a lot of vets on the team that'll be, you know, rising to the occasion, and I guess into their primes and into their fourth and fifth years come next year, as well as some of these junior guys that they've recruited heavily in this last recruiting class. I believe they had the most CGFL commits in Canada West, if not in youth sports, all of youth sports. So, I think they're building this program up for hopefully contention in 2025. I guess I was about to say 2026, but I can't get ahead of myself too much. But 2024, I'm curious to gauge how much they can kind of climb up the standings with it being such a, people like to say the SEC of the youth sports football. I don't like to compare it to NCAA because I think people try to crap on it too much, especially Canadians when they can consume a lot of NCAA on TSN and various TV stations up here in Canada when you can only, get a game or two, I believe, on TELUS every week. So um, I don't like to say the SEC, but the parity, man, is just unbelievable. I think teams are just going to beat each other up on a week by week basis. We saw that last year a little bit with UBC being in some close games, losing to SAS beating University of Alberta, I believe it was, and those three teams kind of taking turns beating up on each other. UBC ends up being first, but I believe it was some sort of combination of those teams. One program had a sweep over the other, and things were all log jammed in there because of how much things are tight in the Canada West Conference. So I think, you know, hopes could be high in Regina. I just wonder how high they can get, especially with, I think, the top three teams probably being pretty set in. I think UBC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, University of Alberta. And then I think in that fourth spot you have Calgary, Manitoba kind of fighting out. Manitoba obviously had it locked up last season, but time will tell. And that is perfect timing as Connor O'Neill from CFP, Canadian Football Perspective, joins us now to talk some Canada West football. Connor, hope you're doing well, buddy. Hope you can hear me. But how you doing?
Good. I got you loud and clear, Cole. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate time, appreciate everything you're doing out on the West Coast there, and certainly looking forward to talking some CanWest football. I've been getting to talk OUA for quite a bit of time now, and excited to jump into some CanWest.
Yeah, man. So as I've been, mentioning to you, I've been wanting to do this since a little bit last year. I was able to kind of introduce myself a little bit more to the Canada West scene, the youth sports scene, and was excited. Kind of put together our little picks panel, I guess if you want to call it that, a little bit last minute, but just a little bit more content, I think, to get the people and fans engaged. Maybe some people that maybe aren't accustomed to youth sports, and maybe they just see a post and they feel a need to tune in. So hopefully we can do that same with preview here tonight. As I was just mentioning there, I did the Regina Rams preview, uploaded that this morning. Have one with Brian Dobie tomorrow, University of Manitoba. I was hoping, unfortunately, probably a little bit bad timing on my part, to do one with all six programs, but wasn't able to do that. So this is where you step in, my man, and we can talk about all six programs a little bit. We'll probably stay away from Regina and Manitoba a lot, but love to kind of hear your overall thoughts on the conference. So where I was just beginning, we'll start with Manitoba. Like I said, we won't talk too much about it because we got a little preview coming out tomorrow morning. But I'm curious. Super cool for me to catch up with head coach Brian Dobie, and I know you guys have talked a little bit about it on your platform. But what are your thoughts on him kind of stepping away and a new face being in Manitoba next year?
I think it's going to be a heck of a farewell tour for Coach Dobie. I think it's going to for I think it's going to be a really good year for the Manitoba Bisons. I'm really excited to see what they have in store. Overall, I think that they're a team that's really going to come in and shock some people. I think fans that might not be as familiarized with the CanWest conference are going to look and be like, oh wow, Manitoba is really shocking some people. And yeah, I do think Manitoba is going to come in and win some football games that maybe some people didn't think they were going to. But they are a deep roster this year, and I'm really excited to see what Coach Dobie is going to be able to do with that team. And in his last run, his farewell tour kicks off here.
All right, let's do it. Not too much Manitoba Bison's talk, but I wanted to ask you about a few things. And obviously, let's start with quarterback Jackson Tuchinski, a guy that really has impressed me the last few months. I mentioned that with Coach Dobie. I actually reached out to
Mm-hmm.
him a little bit after the East West Bowl and just asked him if maybe he'd want to come on and kind of talk to the podcast. And he just mentioned like, man, no disrespect, but I'm really locked in right now and kind of engaged with my, my responsibilities and stuff like that. And I said, no harm, no foul, man. I totally understand, but it just really impressed me for a young kid to kind of, handle his business, if you want to say that. But I know you guys have been able to see him here and there, but what are your thoughts on Jackson and maybe him kind of being a CFL prospect here?
Yeah. Myself and Wade over at CFP, like we are very high on Jackson Tuchinski. We think that he can make a possible Heck Crichton campaign here in 2024. We really feel that he can be, not only one of the best quarterbacks in his own conference, but one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. He's a damn talented quarterback. He really throws the ball well, reads the field really well. He's a very cerebral guy. I really like everything about Jackson Tuchinski's makeup.
Yeah, man. So let's hop over to the defense. I think offense kind of starts and ends with Jackson and how far he'll be able to take them offensively. But defensively, I think it starts with Sebastian Reed in the secondary, Nick Thomas at linebacker, and a few probably up and comers on the defensive line. So what are your thoughts defensively and how they can hang this year?
Yeah, no, again, this is a veteran unit on the back end for the Manitoba Bisons. You mentioned the big names, and you're right. It's going to come down to some of the younger guys in the trenches making some plays, but it's a veteran unit. I think if the young guys just follow the leadership of the names that you've previously mentioned, they're not going to have any issues. I think they're aggressive. They get after the ball. They do some things really well. Pressuring quarterbacks is one of the things that I really like out of that Manitoba Bison's front seven. So I think if they just kind of, stay true to themselves and play their style of football, they're an aggressive unit and they're going to get after some teams.
And I said this with Coach Dobie as well. Last but certainly not least, we obviously saw the historic run by Maya Turner last year, kicking field goals. What are your just overall thoughts on that situation last year? And then coming into this year, she's been getting some pretty good reviews. Coach Dobie mentioned about Sergio Castillo kind of being in the facility and stuff like that, keeping an eye on her and giving some high praise. So what are your thoughts on the situation last year and her opportunity going into this year?
I think it's incredible. I think it's absolutely incredible. It's huge. It's absolutely huge for the sport. I think just for young girls across the country to be able to look at the youth sports football landscape and be like, oh, it's not just it's not just all men playing. There's opportunities there for me. I can play football. I can play this sport if I really want to. And beyond that, I mean, I think it's incredible that she's on the Manitoba Bison's roster, and not only on the roster but contributing in a meaningful way. But what that does beyond just the landscape of youth sports football, tackle football, is it really helps to make football into a sport that girls think is going to be and young girls think it is going to be accessible for them. Look at how much traction is being gained with Canadian flag football right now, both men's and women's teams. Like they're absolutely crushing football. Football Canada is doing such a good job promoting the sport of flag football. And I think if young women across this country can look at a league like U Sports and be like, okay, well, there's somebody that looks like me that's playing at a very competitive level. There's somebody that I can look up to. I think that's only going to do wonders for the game and growing the game.
Yeah, man, and no disrespect, but I think the cool thing is like there's competition as well. It's not just a given to
Yeah.
her. I believe Coach Dobie mentioned there's a few kickers in camp as well, so super cool and super impressive. I think it should be probably it should be getting more attention, but obviously in Canada and U Sports, it's a little bit downplayed. But man, historic stuff what she's been doing and groundbreaking stuff. So shout out to her, and hopefully she's able to have another good season. So like I mentioned, not too much talk for the Manitoba Bisons. We'll save that for tomorrow's episode with Coach Dobie. But looking forward to them, like you said. I think they'll be able to sneak up on some fans and some teams as well. Maybe underestimating them. A few guys coming back, obviously AK Gasama, who got drafted this past year.
Mhm.
I believe All Canadians the past 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Dejan Lejour, who I like. He's a big-bodied former CGFL guy that's going into his second year. So very talented group, and interested to see how the Bisons do this season. And shout out to Brian Dobie, and as you've dubbed it, his farewell tour. Super excited to see how that turns out for them. So let's get to Regina as well, and we'll kind of do the same. We'll quickly get through this with the preview already being out as well. Was able to sit down with Josh Donnelly and pick his brain on the program. But I guess let's start with the quarterback and kind of them having, I guess questions, but I believe it'll be Owen Seaman will be leading them once again. But they have Owen Pelche, I believe. They also signed Trey Jones, a former CGFL with the Langley Rams quarterback, so a veteran as well. So what do you see from the quarterback position and how they can maybe lead the team?
Yeah, I think right now you're right. You said it might be going to Steven, and I think that's the a good assumption to make, especially with the way that he kind of took over things last year in Regina, and did so at a pretty good clip. I mean, he did everything that was asked of him and a little bit more. I think if he's been given these team one reps over the offseason, that's only going to do good things for his confidence, for the team's confidence. And even if there's some sort of quarterback competition, it's only going to do good things to drive drive the competitive levels of your quarterbacks. But with it being Steven under center, or likely being under center, I have faith in him. I have faith that he's going to be able to get the ball to his weapons. He proved that he did that last year with the Rams. And when you have some of the weapons that they do in Regina, it's pretty easy to get the ball to those playmakers and just let them go, get in space and make some plays. I mean, guys like Deshaun Mims are some pretty damn talented football players, right? So when you got a guy like him on your roster, finding him and letting him go make plays, it makes your job pretty easy as a quarterback.
I know you guys over at CFP have been a big fan of Deshaun Mims going back to
Absolutely.
the combine and stuff like that. So I'm glad you guys threw that in there as well. I guess let's shift defensively. I was able to have Jackson Sonback on the podcast earlier in the offseason after he tore up the regional combine.
Yep.
Was super cool to kind of for him to see him. He was coming back to the organization, and then a guy I know you guys have been high on that. I think you guys were able to see him at the East West Bowl, but Delaney Robinson, another CJFL guy who was with the Rush Shore Rebels, and has been I know very impressing a lot of people in CFL, front offices and stuff like that. So what have you seen from defensively and maybe a few of those guys?
Man, I love that you mentioned Jackson Sonback, because he is absolutely one of my favorite players on this Regina Rams defensive unit. He is an absolute playmaker, hard-nosed football player. Is going to put his nose on the ball and go make a play. He's been a guy that we've been really high on for a couple of years now. We got to see him 2 years ago at the East West Bowl when it was at McMaster, and he really impressed us there. And then, like you said, at the regional combine, he just came out and blew everybody away. So I really think that Sonback is going to have another big year ahead of him this year. I think he is one of the, if not the leader on that back end unit for the Rams. But yeah, you mentioned Robinson as well, and he's another damn talented football player, another guy that we've had our eye on for a little while now. And I like the way he moves. I like the way that he covers. I like the way that he just flashes on tape when you cut on the Regina tape. Like, he is a guy that you notice when you're watching their defense play. So they have a lot of really talented football players, but I think for Regina, it really is led by that defensive secondary unit.
Yeah, man, it was super cool to have Jackson on and kind of hear about his story. Obviously, playing with his two other brothers, having
Yeah.
three soundbacks on that program, which is pretty cool. And just a guy that isn't afraid to do the dirty work and get in there, be grimy. I believe he mentioned on the podcast he's like only like 5'8" or something like that, a very smaller stature guy
Yeah,
or
not
something like
the
that.
biggest guy, but he'll make some plays for you for sure.
He's getting invites to the combine and stuff like that. So it's, I think, a testament to how talented he is at that size to be in contention, in conversation. So I was just saying before you came on, I think the biggest thing for Regina probably is like winning some of these close games. They've been in a lot of
Yeah.
games over the past few years and just unable to pull out some of these victories. And I think that's just the Canada West, unfortunately. A lot of parity up and down the six teams, and I think that's going to be the same this year. I kind of was talking about. I think higher hopes is probably for the program, but I don't know how high they can kind of climb with some of the teams that are in front of them. So I think things will look up maybe in a few years here. I believe they're hosting the Vanier Cup next year, if I'm not mistaken. So I think this team's building for hopefully a bright future. So let's get to Saskatchewan, who is probably the one of a program I'm more unfamiliar with, other than in the Canada West. Obviously led by quarterback Anton, I believe, is it Emerud?
Amandred.
Yeah. So just talk a little bit about Saskatchewan and their outlook offensively.
Yeah, Saskatchewan is a really fun unit led by Coach Scott Flory, who's an absolute legend. You mentioned Amandred right off the top. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks in this conference, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the nation. I mean, just to take a pause here, you guys in the Canada West,
Quarterback,
very lucky with the quarterback play out in the Can West, because I think you have like six of the top, I mean, 5 or 6 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the nation are playing football in the Can West right now. All the quarterbacks, I know there's only 6 teams. They all have damn good quarterbacks on their roster, and multiple damn good quarterbacks. But yeah, Amandred for the Huskies is another one of those guys with an absolute rocket launcher of a right arm. Has playmakers all around him. Riker Frank is a guy that can do whatever you need him to do with the ball. Catley Joseph on the back end of that defense is going to hold it down and make plays. They just got guys all over. There's another Weeb brother. I mean, like, I know Nick left the program, but Daniel Weeb's there making plays for them too. But yeah, I really do love what Coach Scott Flory does with that Huskies program, emphasizing line play on both sides of the ball, winning in the trenches. They are a gritty unit, and they make people pay when they want to try to stop the run or run on them.
Yeah, man, and I would think they're probably seamlessly in that top 3 in the Canada West once again, which is the program. You mentioned Coach Florio and having his program ready most weeks. So I would think this is going to be another competitive season from Saskatchewan. And can they maybe get over a few of those humps to, I believe they swept UBC, was it, and then got swept by University of Alberta. So just some more of that parity going on with some of those matchups. Maybe you play a different program a little bit better than another team. So interested to see how Saskatchewan kind of looks and matches up with University of Alberta, UBC as well. But like I said, probably a program that I'm least familiar with in terms of watching. I don't know why, because of how talented they were last year, but just for whatever reason, not really able to consume much. I believe the only one game that I watched of them last year was the game they beat UBC in Saskatchewan, which is actually a pretty good ball game. But
Yeah.
other than that, I think Saskatchewan, you know what to expect from those farm boys. They're going to be ready to go. They'll be physical, and they'll be ready to perform. So let's get to the Alberta teams now. Let's start with Calgary, and it's a new era in Calgary with Coach Ryan Sheehan taking over. But I believe he's a familiar face in that program. Been around for a few previous years, if I'm not mistaken. So, what are you looking forward to in Calgary in terms of the new era there?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking forward to most. I think it's going to be a really interesting turnover. Sheehan runs some really good schemes. Ryan Sheehan runs some really interesting schemes. I think I'm hopeful to see Calgary make a return to what they have been in years past, making Vanier Cup runs, making Hardy Cup runs. Being the team that the CanWest has to run through. So I think for me, the thing I'm looking forward to most is seeing how Ryan Sheehan takes this program, molds it into his own, and then starts to right the ship and kind of push them back into the direction of just a few years ago. Because again, this is another team with a lot of really good players on this roster. Defensively, they've got some ballers. Offensively, they've got guys that can make plays. So it's just a matter of getting it all together and kind of moving in the right direction for Calgary, in my opinion.
And so Dom Britton was obviously starting quarterback for them last year,
Yep.
coming from the junior route as well. I believe the Okanagan Sun. and was, I believe, stepping into a second season as the starting quarterback for the program. I think a big loss for them, a guy that I loved watching in the Canada West last year, was Gob Dang, who obviously left
Yes.
them. I believe his plan was to go to UBC, now committed to the Langley Rams. Um, I think maybe talk about Don Britton as the quarterback number one, and then how much of a loss you think Gob Dang will be to that offense.
I think starting with Don Britton, I think he's a really really talented quarterback. I mean, I was just talking about how much of a treat it is to get to watch the quarterback play in the CanWest. He's just another guy, not just another guy, but he's another quarterback in this roster of talented quarterbacks in the CanWest that are just so fun to watch. So I got nothing but respect for his game. I think he's really smart, really cerebral, sees the field really really well. But obviously, as a quarterback, you get helped out by guys like Dang, who led the league in yard, led the CanWest in yards. I think he was up there tied for second in touchdowns with 4. He was averaging like almost 20 yards, 20 yards a catch last year. I'm definitely not going to sit here and lie to CanWest fans and lie to Calgary fans and say, oh, it's going to be okay. That's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a loss, because it is a big loss. That's your number one wide receiver. But that being said, that's the nature of U Sports football. It's a vicious cycle, whether guys are moving on to go play pro opportunities or moving on to play CJFL opportunities or just graduating, moving on, whatever it is. Guys leave the roster every single year. There's turnover across the nation in Canadian university football, and part of that is trying to combat it. Who's the next man up? Who do you got going for you? So I think having that off season, is going to give them an opportunity to find out who's going to be the next man up. But Sibley last year for this Calgary Dinos offense was a pretty good target. He had, he was just under 350 yards, 3 touchdowns on the season, was averaging somewhere around 10 yards a catch. So I think he might emerge as an option. There's another Britain on the roster who had 200 yards and a touchdown on the season last year. He could emerge as one of these guys to look for too. But I think it's really going to come down to, for Calgary this year in the receiving core, I think it's really going to come down to a collection of guys doing the job versus one star kind of taking over, because it's hard to find one single star, but it's a lot easier to find 2 or 3 pretty solid wide receivers to replace one guy.
Yeah, so maybe tell us a little bit defensively what Calgary's looking like this year. I believe they'll be led by Daniel Flanagan again at one of the linebacker positions. Defensive backfield is usually another one that's strong. But what are you seeing from the Calgary defensive side?
Yeah, I mean, I think Calgary is going to be an aggressive unit. I think they usually are an aggressive unit. They like to get after the ball. They like to pressure and get in the faces of the opposing quarterbacks. They got a group of very talented linebackers and DBs, and a couple guys up on the front 7 that can make some noise too. But I think what I'm really looking forward to looking at with this Calgary unit is the aggression. You mentioned Flanagan, who had 3 sacks last year and a couple TFLs on the season. I think, yeah, you're right. He's going to be one of the leaders. Reed on the season was a 3-sack guy. I think he's going to be another one of these leaders on the Calgary defensive side of the ball. Yeah, those are 2 guys that really stand out to me when I put on Calgary's tape. I don't know the stat. I think Biggs is moving on. Jacob Biggs, I think he's moved on. So I think that's going to be a loss for the Calgary defense. And forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I was going through the Dinos roster just before jumping on, and I don't think I noticed his name. So if Biggs has moved on, that can be a potential loss in the front 7 for the Dinos, but they're an aggressive unit. I think again, like we were talking about, next man up with their wide receiver group. I think they've got some playmakers on the back end that can step in and fill in some of those roles. But they're an aggressive unit. They're going to get after the ball in the air. I really do. I like what I've seen in years past out of the Calgary defensive unit. I don't expect that to change. They're coached very well with the Dinos program on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, well said. So I think it was such an interesting end to their season last year. I believe they beat UBC late and then obviously the Manitoba Miracle. And I picked
Yeah.
Coach Dobie's mind about that situation. I'd love to get your thoughts because I think only in Canadian football we see things like that, right? With limited time left, a point, I believe it was up to a point differential. That I think it was 13 points or something like that. And just how things can change, man. With in the NFL, I feel like you can knee out that possession and it's kind of game over, right? Where anything could happen with any time left on the clock. So a tough ending for them. They beat UBC. They're riding a high. It looks like maybe they're going to get into the playoffs, and then in a snap of finger, one snap, things change, and they win the game, which is crazy. They end up not making the playoffs because of point differential. So, what were your thoughts on that last year? I know it was kind of semi-viral for Canadian football standards, but
Yeah.
what were you thinking watching that?
That's a Canadian Heritage Minute. That's immediately what came to my mind. It was such a uniquely Canadian ending to a football game. It was wild. I don't really have. I still am having trouble finding the words to describe what I was watching because my brain is still trying to comprehend what the hell I saw from a year ago. But yeah, no,
I gotta ask,
yeah.
were you like a lucky one that maybe was watching live?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch it live. I had to go back and watch it, but
Same excitement, honestly.
yeah, no, it was because I was planning to watch that game anyways. I was unable to watch it live, and then I saw everything breaking on social media, and I was like, okay, now I really got to make sure I go back and watch this game. No, I wish I could have watched that one live, though. I could not imagine being a fan in that stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. I was unable to watch that one live, but same similar situation as you. I saw it starting to blow up on social media. I had to go back and watch that one.
Yeah,
And just an interesting one for Calgary. I believe they finished 3-5 last year. We're in a lot of games, and it
yeah,
comes down to things like that. And just interested to see how they perform this year. I will small teaser. I was gonna kind of drop it on the Calgary Dinos preview. Not able to have it. I reached out to Theo Benedict, obviously former offensive lineman at UBC, and just asked him for his opinion on UBC and kind of just give me a few things when coming to the topic. And he unpromptly mentioned University of Calgary and them being a better team, and he thinks that some teams will be some people will be sleeping on them. So I thought
yeah,
that was very interesting. My eyebrows definitely raised a little bit, and remember that one. So I'm interested to see how this Calgary team does with the new head coach stepping into his first year, Dom being a second-year quarterback, and how that defense is usually always prepared and up to the task. So I think Calgary will be a team that's definitely in contention for playoffs, but can they play up to their potential? Well, we will see. So let's go to University of Alberta, which I had Matthew Peterson on, running back for the University of Alberta. I believe before he got drafted, somewhere in the combine timeline, and it was super cool to pick his brain. I believe Canada West Player of the Year, and I guess I was going to start with him, but another quarterback that you mentioned about being so spoiled, a guy that I was really impressed with last year was Eli Hetlinger at quarterback for
yeah.
the University of Alberta. I guess maybe let's start with selfishly being the quarterback. Let's start with all the quarterbacks. But what are your thoughts offensively, starting with maybe those two guys?
I think those are two of the best guys in the conference. Obviously Matthew Peterson, his abilities speak for themselves. I don't think there's anything that I can say about Matthew Peterson that anybody can't find by just flipping his tape on and watching him play football, because he is an incredible talent. I do think that he's kind of the heartbeat of the Golden Bears offense. He is the driving force to that offense. He's kind of what makes them go. But Eli Hetlinger, you're right, is such an electric playmaker, such a fun football player to watch. He's so smart with the ball, with his reads, with just getting his guys in positions to be successful. He was basically a 65% completion guy last year, almost 2,000 yards. He had the 12 touchdown passes. His interception numbers were down too. I think he only had like 5 interceptions on the season last year. He's smart. He keeps the ball out of harm's way, and he's got a ton of talent around him. So this Alberta offense, I think, is only going to grow this season. I think he came out either this morning or yesterday. Can't remember when I saw it, but I believe in the coaches poll for the CanWest, Alberta was actually favored to win the Hardy Cup. So that'll be fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see, but that's largely in in part because of guys like Eli Hetlinger and Matthew Peterson. They're just so good at what they do.
Yeah, Matthew Peterson, man, unbelievable. When I was able to watch him play UBC and watch his highlights after the season, man, he is a very good running back to watch, or very fun running back to watch. And I hope one day he kind of gets his opportunity with guys that are blazing the trail in front of him, like an Andrew Harris, Brady Oliveira, Canadian running backs that can do it. You know, we've seen with Daniel Adeboboye now starting to get opportunities. A few other guys that are Canadians getting looks in the CFL. And I think Matthew Peterson's talented enough to be one of those guys as well. Obviously, cut his teeth a little bit. I believe was drafted by Hamilton. Spent some time there with them in training camp and was cut, but brought back to the program. Hopefully, can build on that and then get into their camp next year and hit the ground running. So defensively, I think it starts with a guy that I actually really like. Considering I guess maybe he's a rival if you want to call me a UBC fan, but Jonathan Justini, I liked his kind of flair and the way he
Yeah.
the waving goodbye and stuff like that to Saskatchewan. He plays with a very entertaining guy, and then he backs it up with his play on the field and kind of do it all. Like I mentioned, a kicker for them as well. So what do you see defensively from them, and maybe starting with Jonathan?
He's a damn talented defensive back. CanWest All-Star. He breaks on the ball really well. His footwork is phenomenal. His hips are super fluid. He stays low. His pad level is low through his back pedal and on his brakes, and he's just so smart in coverage. Whether he's playing man, whether he's in zone, just his ability to see the field and kind of read the quarterback without staring at their eyes, because it's that's a big issue for DBs. Once you lock eyes with a quarterback, that usually means the ball is going over your head for a touchdown. You don't really want to be caught looking in the backfield too much, but he's a really, really smart, safe player. Not safe in the sense that he's not willing to go, stick his nose on a ball, but safe in the sense that he's just smart with when he picks his moments, when he takes his shots. We talk about offenses taking their shots all the time, but defense take their shots too. When the ball goes up in the air, when they have an opportunity, they think they can bring a +1, whatever it may be. Justini is really smart at reading his shot and picking his moment. I think he's, for my money, he's one of the best defensive backs in the conference. So I really like that back end unit, but there's some guys up front for Alberta that can do some damage too. Tatarin is a really damn good ball player. He had like 51.5 tackles last year, 2.5 sacks, a couple TFLs. I think he actually led the CanWest in TFLs. It was close to it, if I'm not mistaken, with like 8 TFLs. So he's a really fun prospect to watch. Flunder is another fun prospect to watch as well. He had a whole whack at tackles, sticks his nose on football and goes makes plays for that Alberta defense as well. But they have some players on the back end of that team that can really, really do some damage and make some noise. And we saw last year the Hardy Cup literally came down to the very last play, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But man, that Alberta defense all year was impressive, but in that Hardy Cup was a very impressive unit. I know they didn't win the game, but they played some tough nosed football.
Yeah, I think for me, University of Alberta now, it's they walked the walk last year. They proved that they're a legit team, and now they're getting a little bit of this praise heading into the season. It's time for them to talk the talk. And I think, man, can they build on that Canada West appearance? Like you just said, they had UBC on the brink. I think everything you said about Eli Hetlinger, I agree with. And I think he would like to forget the last play of his season, which I believe he fumbled with a little bit over a minute to go. UBC was able to get possession back and end up scoring, I believe, which kind of change things for the worse for them, unfortunately. But can they build on that Canada or that Hardy Cup appearance? And it's not going to be an easy task with teams around them, especially with even teams behind them kind of catching up to the pack, if that's what you want to call it, and just the parity overall. So I guess any last thoughts? Obviously, Coach, is it Chris Morris leading the program once again? I think he's over 10 years now with the program. But anything else, U of A?
I don't think there's anything else I really have to add. You mentioned Coach Morris, and he's an absolute offensive line mind. He gets them right at U of A, and I think that's why they're so successful running the ball.
You mentioned offensive line. Is a guy like Daniel Shin back? I believe he got drafted.
He is, yeah.
He got drafted and then got cut, right?
Yep. So I believe I saw his name back on the roster. I don't know how up to date or how reliable. I'm, this close to season, I'm hoping that all of the rosters are up to date and reliable, but we never know. So don't quote me on that one. But I believe I did see Daniel Shin on the roster, which is a huge plus
Huge
for the
plus.
U of A if he is in fact back.
I know a guy that you guys were very high on as well, but maybe to professionals, he's a little bit undersized. I think I think you guys mentioned about him being a great U Sports offensive lineman, maybe not a great professional offensive lineman, but a guy that's going to be able to do his job at the U Sports level, not having to go against the some of the div one defensive tackles, stuff like that. Some of those imports that are coming in. So let's get to UBC lastly,
Yep.
and a team obviously I have probably the most familiarity with, being able to watch them live and in person last year. But I would love to start with quarterback. Let's start with the guys that are doing it in the NFL on Sundays from now on. Giovanni Manu made the 53-man roster for the Chicago Bear or for the Detroit Lions. You're Detroit Lions, actually. No?
Huge Lions fan. So I was
Yes.
really happy to see Gio make that roster.
And Theo made the practice roster for the Chicago Bears. So talk about those guys. I was so kind of thrilled that was like my first season being able to follow along Canada West, and I was able to watch those guys. I know a lot of the times probably missing out on the action, ISO camming both of them when I had the opportunities. But just what do you have to say about those guys and just the opportunity that they're bringing to guys at UBC and others around them as well?
I'm super happy for both of those guys. We interviewed both of them coming into the draft season this year, and they were two of the nicest guys that we've had the opportunity to talk to. It seems like everybody that we talked to from UBC is super nice. Like when we got the chance to talk to Lake Cordy Moore, he was awesome too. So all those UBC guys are absolutely great people. But super happy for Gio and Theo to make the 53 and Theo to get brought back on the practice roster. For the U Sports landscape, I think, that's incredible. That just, furthers the point that, we can play football up here. We're not just a hockey country that, we can throw the football around a little bit too. We can throw our weight around on the gridiron a little bit. Unfortunately, Matthew Betts didn't make the cut for the Lions. I was really hoping. Fortunately for you.
Fortunately, I was going to say, unfortunately, fortunately, though, man.
But no, I think in terms of, Gio and Theo making NFL rosters in, each doing it in their own way, for UBC as a school, it certainly puts them on the map, right? Like NFL scouts are going to be like, oh, we just had two damn good offensive linemen come out of this school. Let's maybe check them out because I'm sure they've got a ton of other playmakers. And, if you're assuming that if you're an NFL scout, you're right. UBC does have a ton of playmakers. But yeah, for UBC, it does wonders for scouting opportunities for them. For the U Sports as a whole, it does wonders for the landscape of talent in Canadian football and for being able to provide other guys opportunities because the more Canadians that are getting NFL looks, the more scouts that are, north of the border going, oh yeah, these guys, those guys up there can play. So I think, it's huge for them. It's huge for UBC and it's absolutely massive for university football in Canada as a whole.
They hosted their own pro day with how many NFL talent evaluators, scouts in the building. So truly
Yep.
groundbreaking stuff, man, for the or for U Sports in whole, especially the program and then the conference as well. I think we're seeing that unfold with I mentioned I kind of reached out to Theo and asked his thoughts about the program and stuff like that. He mentioned Isaiah Knight, and Isaiah Knight's kind of starting to be talked about in some of these NFL circles now with some
Yeah.
of these scouts being able to get their eyes on him. And I think he's probably one of those guys that is up there going into this year of maybe to rival Matthew Peterson and maybe being that player in the conference.
Yeah, I know largely the Heck Crichton is considered a quarterback award now, much like the Heisman is, much like the MVPs are. But I truly think that if we're going away from the quarterbacks here, I think Isaiah Knight is one of the guys in the CanWest that can make a Heck Crichton push. I think him and Matt Peterson are guys that can really throw their names out there. And if it's not going to go to a quarterback, I think they're guys that should be considered for a Heck award because they're two of the most talented players. Not only in the conference, but they're two of the most talented running backs that we have in our country, playing the university level. So they're very talented football players. Isaiah Knight, I have nothing but great things to say about him, the way he plays the game, the way he runs the football, what he does for that UBC offense. You know, we were talking about Matthew Peterson being, you know, the driving force, the engine for U of A. Well, Isaiah Knight is the exact same thing, but for UBC. You know, without Isaiah Knight, does that UBC offense look as good as it does? I don't know, because a lot of it works off of what he's able to do. So he's another prospect that UBC has that is just so fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think for people that aren't familiar, obviously Stevenson Bone, offensive coordinator for the UBC Thunderbirds, a guy I'm familiar with from his time at Western. They cross paths with my friend in high school, receiver Malik Bessiger, who went out there. And to me, it kind of looks so similar to that Western offense where they like to feed the ball, and kind of get the defenses to play up, go over the top, and hit them with those big plays with some of their skill position players. And Isaiah is kind of the straw that stirs that drink to make that offense go. I think is definitely fair, even though they have so many talented receivers as well.
Mm-hmm.
But with a talented running back and losing 2 offensive linemen to the NFL, do you think there causes any maybe questions for concern offensively? I know there's a few guys that have been veterans. Theo mentioned that as well. Don't try to underestimate some of these guys that are coming up, but maybe at the tackle position, who do you like? Don't have to give me any names, but do you think that they can maybe carry on at the same kind of level of play? Not level, I guess maybe not the same level of play as Theo, but they can kind of offensively they can kind of keep afloat, I guess.
I do. I do. You're right, 100%. Those are massive losses. You can't replace guys like Theo and Gio. The impact that they have on the game, the imprint that they left on UBC from their time there is huge. You can't overstate their impact. But yeah, that this is what good teams do. This is what good coaching staffs do. This is what good offensive line coaches do. They develop, they move on. Like we were talking about earlier, we know that in some form or another in Canadian university football landscape, guys are going to move on. And it's your job as the coaching staff and the training staff to get those guys ready, get the next man up developed, get whoever is going to be replaced ready to step in. And much like Coach Fleury does at Saskatchewan and Coach Morris does at Alberta, UBC is a damn good offensive line coach as well. So I think that they're going to get their guys right. I think that they're going to be capable of filling the void. And I do think that they're going to be able to continue moving the ball at the same clip, because it's tough to replace those guys, but there were still 3 other guys. There were still 3 other players along that offensive line that, helped Isaiah Knight and Garrett Rooker and the rest of the UBC T-Birds offense to the season that they had last year. So is it going to be tough to fill those voids? Yeah, for sure. But it's not going to be an insurmountable task by any measure.
We waited this long to talk about Garrett Rooker, but another quarterback in the Canada West who's obviously came up from the States.
Good.
And you mentioned about quarterback rooms. Another one with Derek Engel, the guy that came up from the States as well, has kind of had to buy his time behind a guy like Garrett Rooker, because of obviously he was able to play a little bit with Rooker's injury a few seasons ago, but has been the primary backup. I know they get him in there quite a bit, short yardage situations and stuff like that, but I would think arguably probably the best 1-2 in the conference, maybe the country. But what do you got to say about, first of all, the quarterback room and those 2 guys, and then some of the weapons that they're going to be throwing to? Because there's no shortage of weapons on UBC.
Yeah, quarterback situation in UBC, that's a luxury if you're a coach. You have those 2 guys in your quarterback room. That's a real good problem to have. You're right. Yeah, we've seen Ingles come in and do some things on short yardages and whatnot. And he filled in when Rooker had the injury. I believe he played in the game, the exhibition game against SFU a few years back as well, and had a really good game there. So for him as a backup, probably the best backup in the country, I would say, or one of the best backups in the country. But Garrett Rooker, such a talented quarterback, so much fun to watch play. But yeah, I'd be if I was a QB coach or an offensive coordinator and that was my QB room, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, so let's go defensively. A lot of guys, I believe, returning from
a
few
lot
guys
of veteran depth.
I know a few guys got drafted, but I believe none of them ended up sticking. But another unit that was a lot of names on the back end, a lot of guys in that linebacking core. I think a guy that they lost, but I would think is coming back, who another guy that got drafted, but I loved, was Kyle Sampson. Is it the defensive tackle?
Yep.
I know it's hard to kind of watch those guys in the middle there, but his tape that they put out, I believe it was Shamari Williams, the recruiting coach, was
Yep.
fantastic, man. The way that guy eats up double teams, is able to penetrate at in the interior there, was fabulous to watch. So defensively, what do you got to say about UBC and how they're going to look this year?
Yeah, I'll just start there on Samson because that's an easy jumping off point. But we like to use the term "mess the play up guys" or "f the play up guys" at CFP all the time, and he is one of the ultimate mess the play up guys. He's not going to be one of these guys that fills the stat sheet. You're not going to see 7, 8, 9, 10 sacks beside his name a season, but there's going to be little check marks beside his name as you're cutting his tape up, and there's going to be a ton of those little check marks because every time you cut his tape on, he's doing something to impact the play, and that's check, check, check. Every time you cut this guy's tape on, he is making disruptive things happen along that offensive line to allow his teammates to get in there, get a sack, get a TFL, get a stuff or a stop for 1 or 2 yards, whatever it may be. So he is really the guy that makes things happen for the rest of his teammates without showing up on the stat sheet too much. And that is invaluable to have when you can impact the game like that without being the guy that, has your name in the paper or has all the stats on the stat sheet, whatever it is. I think having guys like that along your defensive line unit are super important.
Yeah, man. So work your way back. Talk about those linebackers at UBC and
Yeah.
some guys that have been very talented that are, I believe all three of them are returning, if I'm not mistaken, or two of them at least. But talk about the linebacking core.
Ryan Baker, Mitchell Townsend, two damn talented linebackers, two of the best in the conference. They play with so much speed. They play with so much aggression. It was evident in that Hardy Cup game last year. I believe it was Baker that busted through and fell on the fumble as if he was running a 4.3 40. It looked like on tape. Like he was moving, super fast, really flashy, and by flashy, I don't mean like flashy in terms of like a lot of flair when he's playing. I mean flashy in terms of every time he's making a play, it's like you notice it. So he's a super talented player. I really love watching those two play. I think they both got sent back. It is what it is, but I think that's a really good problem to have if you're the UBC T-Birds because you just got back two of the best linebackers in the conference.
And I believe another guy that's Jackson Trillo Brand, I think, was another guy that kind of
Yeah,
jumped off when you watch
super
UBC games.
talented.
Yeah, man. And then in the back end there with guys like Maxwell Kennedy, I believe, is a guy that's a leader in the secondary. What do you see from the defensive secondary?
A lot of aggression from this unit. They play smart. They really are able to take away and force an opposing offense to play left-handed for lack of a better term. But they're really good at just kind of being patient and squeezing out the opposing offensive opportunities. We saw that again. I hate to keep falling back on the Hardy Cup matchup, but it was such a good game. Both teams played so soundly, but they took away a lot of the downfield threats for Alberta, and they really squeezed out and forced. I know both quarterbacks still had field days in that one, but for what it was, they were able to limit some of those big play opportunities for the Alberta Golden Bears in that matchup.
Yeah, man. So from a bird's eye view, I guess, I probably said maybe a little bit prematurely without kind of including U of A and Saskatchewan in there. But I think for me, it's kind of like expectations wise, UBC at probably at the top, Regina probably towards the bottom, and then kind of everybody else not really knowing, kind of where to place who. But you think expectations are for UBC to get back to that Hardy Cup, win it, and then, fulfill their winning a national championship with this kind of core group?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They, they got to the Vanier last year. They lost a tough one to Montreal, who's a damn good football team in their own right.
Montreal's back too.
I know this. We're talking. This is a CanWest preview, and we're talking CanWest football here. But if I can just like really zoom out here for a second, looking at the U Sports landscape as a whole, there is veteran depth from Nova Scotia all the way out to BC. Like teams are as deep as they've ever been There's so much talent, and I'm very damn excited for this CanWest season. If I zoom back in now on CanWest here, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think the expectation is for BC to get back to the Hardy Cup, to win the Hardy Cup, to advance to Avania. I think that's their own expectation. But the rest of the CanWest, like I think Alberta is obviously going to be up there challenging. Obviously, Saskatchewan is going to be in the mix. I think even Manitoba could challenge to be in this mix, as could Calgary, depending on how things look for them. So yeah, you're right. I think that the top end of the CanWest looks like UBC and probably in Alberta for me, and then the rest of it it's anything could happen on any given weekend.
All right. I don't want to take you. I don't want to keep you too much longer, Connor, because I don't think I told you this long. But would love to just maybe get your quick thoughts on the matchups this weekend. We could start with maybe Regina, Calgary. We obviously put out our picks, taking Calgary, I believe, in a clean sweep. But what are your thoughts on just the matchup this week?
Yeah, I'll start with Regina, Calgary. It's going to be a bit of a tone setter for Calgary, I think, to start the year. They're going to kind of show what the new era Dinos are kind of made of and kind of look like. But I don't expect Regina to roll over. I know Coach McConkey's got his group rolling, and you said that they lost some coin flip games last year, and they're going to kind of want to right that ship. And I think for them to come out with a week one win against Calgary would be absolutely massive. So I think this is going to be, a 9-round fight between Regina and Calgary. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to that one. I like both the quarterbacks in that matchup. I mean, I like every quarterback in the CanWest, but I like both the quarterbacks in that matchup. I'm excited to see what the Sheehan era looks like in Calgary as well. Looking at that Saskatchewan Manitoba matchup, it's another super exciting game. It's the start of the Adobe Farewell Tour. It could be the start of Jackson Tuchinski's Heck Crichton tour as well. So we'll see. That's another slugfest that I'm really looking forward to. And then obviously the Alberta UBC game, the Hardy Cup rematch. I think that's the one that, CanWest fans, OUA fans, RSEQ fans, AUS fans, U Sports fans, we've all got that one circled on our calendars. These are going to be two of the best teams in the country this year. Not even just in the CanWest, in the country. So I'm really looking forward to watching that matchup. I think that's for me, U Sports. That's the U Sports game of the week for me this week.
Yeah, man.
Without question.
I'm so excited to have U Sports been back for a few weeks now, but regular season action and meaningful games. A little bit bummed out. A little bit, I guess, is kind of maybe the wrong word. It's Touchdown Pacific, obviously, this weekend. I'm going down to Victoria tomorrow morning, so I don't know how much time or if I'm going to even have an opportunity to watch the games live. Obviously, with the Canada West TV, you can watch it on demand, so I'll probably watch it maybe Sunday or whenever I get back, but a little bit bummed that I'm going to be hearing about all the fun action going on and then having to wait to watch it. So super excited.
Touchdown Pacific's a pretty good excuse to be missing some CanWest action. So I think you get away with one there.
I think so as well. So lastly, let's maybe zoom out if you don't mind. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but you're more the expert from the U Sports scene than I am. So I think, number one, we're so blessed at the quarterback position, which we've been talking about. Can you talk about some of those other guys? Jonathan Senecal, Taylor Elgersma, another, I believe the Laval quarterback, is it Desjardins? Is another talented one. We just talked about, 5 of the 6, arguably 6 of the 6 quarterbacks that are in the Canada West are pretty talented as well. But just the kind of day and age we live in with, Nathan Rourke coming back to the CFL, Trey Ford getting the start this weekend, and how hopefully this is kind of like a new era of quarterbacks, Canadian quarterbacks.
Yeah, this is I've been watching U Sports football since it was called CIS. So I've been watching it for a pretty long time. I think this is, one of the most exciting eras of quarterbacks that we have in the Canadian university landscape. I mean, we just spent a pretty decent amount of time talking about the guys in the CanWest, but if I work my way back across the country to go to the OUA here, Keegan Hall at McMaster throws the ball all over the field. Taylor Elgersma, who you mentioned, was the OUA MVP and was making a Heck Crichton campaign last year. Alex Freakin at Queens is a really talented quarterback as well. Guelph has 2 in Marshall McRae and Tristan Aboud, who just went out and had a pretty damn good week 1 last week against the Carleton Ravens. The Quebec Conference, you mentioned Arnaud Desjardins and Jonathan Senecal. There's also Olivier Waugh at Concordia, who's a really talented quarterback as well. And then if we move to the AUS, if we move into the AUS, Silas
It's
Fagnon
I
from
was
St.
gonna say.
FX is really damn good too. The Bishop's quarterback last week just threw for 350 yards. So everywhere you look, every conference that you want to watch football in Canada, in the Canadian university landscape, there's at least 4 quarterbacks who are really, really damn talented. And shout out to guys like Nathan Rourke and Trey Ford who are making, you know, kids in Canada be like, who are allowing kids in Canada to look at the CFL and point to them and be like, hey, look, you know, there's a Canadian under center for BC this weekend. There's a Canadian under center for Edmonton this weekend, and they're making noise and they're damn good football players. So like, why can't I do that? So I think this is just a really, really good time to be a Canadian football fan, and it's an even better time to be a quarterback in Canadian university football, because more and more it looks like there's opportunities opening for you.
Yeah, man. So very well said. Last one to bug you, but you're lucky enough to be out there. I'm sure watch this guy play a few bit, but BC boy, but Jackson Finley at the University of Western.
Oh,
Believe ranked number 5 or 6 on the Scouting Bureau's fall edition. Obviously, there'll be a winter one, and then I think a spring one as well. But
yep.
your kind of reaction says it all. A guy went to Vancouver Challenge, Factory, who's been putting out U Sports, CFL, NFL level prospects for a long time. I remember the days of Rashawn Simon, Christian Covington, obviously, and many more prospects in between. What do you got to say about Jackson? I'm sure you guys have maybe tried to get out to Western when you're able to watch that guy play, and if not, you're watching him play on OUA TV.
I will start off with this. Did you see the hit that he laid against Ottawa last week?
Yeah.
If you've never watched Jackson Finley play football, I mean that's probably all you got to know about Jackson Finley. That's the type of player that he is. This is a tough one for me to say, but I think he's probably my favorite player in the OUA right now. He is super talented ball player, really, really smart in a really difficult defensive scheme to pick up. He's really taken over as the leader. He's basically become a second defensive coordinator for the Western Mustangs, which is huge praise for him, because they call the defensive playbook the Bible over there at Western, because it is like 1,500 pages thick, man. Like it is truly a like 1,500 page book. That thing is super long. It's very complex. There's a lot of different schemes, a lot of different looks, a lot of different coverages. So to be able to have a guy like Jackson Finley that understands basically that whole playbook and can act as a second coach out there is huge. And that's exactly why he was ranked 5th on the CFL Scouting Bureau. And then, he goes out and has a performance like he does in week 1, where he's flying around on defense, making plays. He's flying around on special teams, making plays. And I can't overstate the importance of being a good special teams player enough, because that's how you earn opportunities. If you are a young player at the university level, that is how you earn your looks at the pro level. If you're a damn good special teams player, that's going to help your case. And Jackson Finley certainly is that. And not only is he a damn good special teams player, but he's probably the best safety in Ontario right now.
Yes, well said. Connor, thank you so much, man. That was a treat. I've been telling everybody I've been sitting down doing the previews with that this is just as much of a preview for myself, kind of getting into the U Sports scene than my listeners and my viewers. So I appreciate it. Super excited for the season to kick off, to cover the season for the first time. Hopefully going to plan on doing some sort of weekly content, but enough about me. Let the people know what you guys got going on at CFP. If you guys got anything going on, or any final thoughts, OUA, U Sports Football, anything you want to include.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody's interested, I do, myself and my colleague Wade Zanchetta, we do the OUA show. It's 2 shows weekly in conjunction with OUA football. So you can find that at CF Perspective or at OUA Sports. So we do a kind of weekly preview and then a weekly recap. We just talk about the games that were, or preview the upcoming games. So that's great for us to do. We love talking about the OUA football. So if you're an OUA fan, definitely check that out. Otherwise, you can just kind of tune into us at CF Perspective or at myself at Connor R. O'Neill. Always talking to U Sports football. I don't shut up about Canadian football, about U Sports football, about Giovanni Manu making the Detroit Lions, because that really fired me up. But
And
cool.
what is it? Was it five other U Sports prospects? I believe were on active
Yeah.
rosters as well. I believe.
Yep.
So
Yep.
another
I don't
cool.
know if I can name off the top of my head, but Dean Leonard, Tavius Robinson, Giovanni Manu. No, I got three. I don't think I can get all five.
I was gonna say Neville Gallimore. He wasn't in a U Sports prospect.
No,
He was cut, I believe, as well. Dakota Shapley, is it or no?
I believe he got cut or
Okay.
released.
But
But
anyways,
maybe
there
he
was
got brought
five.
back. There was
There was
five.
five. I saw the post, so we can verify it. But Connor, man, like I said, you've been a great friend of mine as well, and friend of the platform, coming on here, giving us some of your time, and always so knowledgeable when it comes to youth sports and stuff like that. So hopefully we can talk soon. Like I was saying, I'm hoping to kind of copy some of the style you guys are doing with Canada West content. I've said that to you a couple of times. I feel like OUA has some content. AUS and RSAQ a little bit as well, and I think Canada West is kind of lacking a little bit. So that's why I kind of approached you guys to do the weekly picks, and hopefully going to do a weekly show if I can kind of fit it in there with some of the busy schedule. But time we'll see, and I'm hoping to do that weekly. So thanks, buddy. And any final thoughts? I guess where can the people find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Connor R O'Neill on Instagram and Twitter. If you want, I'm there. I'm talking about U Sports football usually, but Cole, appreciate you having me on here. Appreciate everything that you're doing for Canadian football, for university football out on the West Coast. I agree with you. I love CanWest. I know there's people out there that do too. I'm based in Ontario, so I do have a bit of that Ontario bias. I talk about the OUA because that's where I'm at. That's where I'm living at. But I appreciate everything you're doing out on the West Coast. Love CanWest football, and I don't think there's enough coverage that we can have for it. So appreciate all you're doing out there.
Awesome, buddy. Thank you so much. Lastly, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know down below, guys, if you guys have been enjoying all the Canada West content. We posted the Regina Rams preview this morning, our weekly picks, what you guys can expect from us on a weekly basis. That's from me, Connor, Gord Randall, and Matt Young from CTV. Should be a lot of fun. I think hopefully create a lot of good conversation, banter for the Canada West community, and just U Sports community as a whole. So looking forward to that. And enjoy Labor Day weekend, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week.